Alex Riecke-Gonzales. Are you ready to fearlessly question today?
I hope so. I think that's what we're here for. So, yeah, I think so. I think I'm in the right place.
All right, well, we have a little surprise for everybody, and I'm going to pop back onto me here. And you're actually sitting in the same room. Um, I mean, we're going to fearlessly question proximity. I thought, well, why not actually be in the same room to do it? Um, Very first for the show. It's kind of weird, but we're getting through it. A few technical difficulties getting set up. So apologize for the late start. But Alex, um, first fearless question. Leaving my house today, it's been quite a challenge getting here. I tell you, it reminds me, or I guess it depresses me. My faith in humanity is always kind of slightly lessened every time I leave the house. When you go to the grocery store, where's the best place to park?
The best, the grocery store?
Yeah, where do you park?
Where do I park?
Yeah.
Well, fun fact about Alex, I have this mantra, healthier steps to a healthier life. So I always park.
You're gonna give me that answer?
Yeah,
You're gonna give me that answer.
yeah. I always park like kind of far away to like, but when it snows, I park as close to the door as
I
possible.
see there. You
Yeah.
park next to the shopping cart return place.
Good call. Good
A little
call.
fun fact. But anyways, we will go ahead and enough with the silliness. Um, I want you to catch everybody up. Kind of tell us your story, fearlessly questioning proximity, whatever you think people want to know.
Oh, okay. Well, my story of fearlessly questioning proximity. Okay, well, a little bit about me. Most of you guys know me that are watching this, I think. But I am a communication studies graduate student, and I also teach part time alongside that the basic intro to human communication course. So this subject of proximity is actually really interesting for me because it's something that I bring up in my classes all the time. When we talk about nonverbal communication, we talk about how they're meeting more and more people in a mediated context, and that means that they generally don't have those nonverbals and what that does to the relationships that they have with these people. And one of the things that we always talk about, because, got to make it fun, we always talk about the fights that happen because when you don't have those nonverbals, a lot of times miscommunication happens more often. So we talk about, like if they're in relationships, I like to talk about their girlfriends getting mad at them because, it's always the girlfriends, right? Or fights that they have with their friends via text because they don't have those nonverbals. So that's really where I've done the most questioning of proximity, really, because I'm always in social media. I am always meeting people in Google Plus, and I told Joey when I met him today, he's the second person
Which is kind of weird.
that I've met.
So I'm gonna have to get on you about that in a little bit, but that'll come a little bit later.
Yeah, I don't I'm kind of a homebody. I haven't and I don't know very many people in Ohio.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, so we are here on Kent. We're at Kent State University. If you're thinking we're like
Mm-hmm.
in a prison cell, we're not. It's just
Mm-hmm.
this is the accommodations they have for a study room. This is what they view as a kind of an inspiring place to learn.
Well, no distractions.
Well, yes, I'm distracted by how isolated I am, I guess. Alex, you live in Akron. You teach here at Kent. I live
Mm-hmm.
just a few minutes north in Streetsboro. I don't think anybody knows where that is, but we'll just call it Kent for the most part. And I said, well, we're going to fiercely question proximity because, well, we live like 15 minutes down the road. We've never met. Alex has never met anybody else offline, which is again weird. And so it's all centered around this idea that, well, we are always connected in this Google Plus, Twitter, wherever we're connected, but yet even somebody like Alex, we've probably been aware of each other for 6 months here. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how long, and it's just like, well, we know that we live right down the street from each other, but do you actually take the effort to physically meet? So first, here's the question, the best one that I've got for you. We'll see if any more come up. Are we afraid to do the work offline, or are we just more comfortable hiding behind a keyboard?
That's a really good question. I can tell you that when I ask my students about miscommunication happens more often in a mediated context. So why are we using it more? Their first answer is always convenience. And it's true, we like the idea of convenience, but I think there's another factor that goes into this, and that is that we have more accessibility to these people. I mean, before, when you lived in a really small town, like when you're someone like me that's from an island, there's only so many people on that island, and you have to find a way to get along with those people, even if they're not a part of what you would consider your tribe, even if they aren't the kind of people that you would consider have things in common with you. So I think we also tend to move to the online space because it's easier for us to find those people that we have something in common with. And maybe, we're that unique little unicorn that doesn't have that many people that have something in common with us, and the person that does happens to be thousands and thousands of miles away. So I think that it is convenience. I think that it does make things easier, but I think that we also tend to move online because finding our tribe, finding our people is it's easier, but there's also more of them, than in a proximity. And yeah, it does go back to convenience. They're easier to find. Like, how long would it have taken us to find each other, even though we only live like 10-20 minutes away from each other? It could take us years to find each other, and then we have to go through the whole niceties process, and then we really get into the meat of, okay, what do we have in common?
Right. Well, I think that's really where I'm coming at from this entire conversation. Is it's only allowed us to accelerate that process. So we have the ability to find the people that aren't close to us now, but we're still not making that effort. So I think that's what is strange to me. So like, why is so the next question is, what stops us from making that jump? Why are we not doing those things once we are able to find those people, because we have the tools now to kind of identify them and jump through that process much faster?
Again, another really good question. And, obviously I'm going to take it slightly personally.
Well, I mean, and you know where I
But
live, so
that's true. That's true.
so
I think that I think we are a little bit scared because it takes the relationship to another level. There is a difference between, and I don't want to, if Ammon is out there, I don't want to upset him because he does have a really, really great relationship with Bill Slavsky, and they've never met each other, but they have had that relationship for a really long time. So I'm not saying that you can't build that relationship online over time. I'm just saying that meeting someone takes the relationship to another level, and it's a type of vulnerability, it's a type of disclosure, because even though right now we are on camera, there's a lot that we did to make us look the way that we do. There's a lot of things that are still within our control because we're still in a mediated context. Once it becomes meeting someone face to face, that's another form of disclosure. It's another form of, I trust you enough that we can take this relationship to the level of meeting each other face to face. And then you always have that fear of like, am I going to not like this person? Maybe they're awesome online, and maybe they're really, maybe they're great writers, but not so great at having conversations in person.
it makes me feel like I'm inherently broken because I don't have any of those thoughts. I don't. I'll work on that. But Griswold makes a very good point. I think it's kind of saying what you are saying. Let's see, there it is. Says, I like that I can click the little red X to get out of an uncomfortable situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more awkward in person. And I would consider myself a very socially awkward person, if anybody's ever met me. But again, I think, wow, that's a very good point. I think it is. It's one, it's the awkwardness, and two,
Mm-hmm.
it's we feel braver, more confident behind a keyboard. We will say things that we won't say. So I think the challenge, at least that I'm putting out today to you, to whoever's watching, is um, you know, why can't you act the same way in both spaces? Why do we have to have these kind of different personalities per se? Why are we so afraid to say what we would say behind a keyboard to you? I mean, I'm going to tell you the exact same thing I would type to you. Now it's just me. Again, I think I'm broken a little bit with finding that out. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think that it's that movement into vulnerability because there are more variables. There are a lot more variables when we are together in an actual space for us. Then when we are online, it's much more controlled. We have, so like people that tend to be kind of control freaks, you're going to find them a lot, which I am. Don't, I'm not saying this about anybody else. I'm saying this about myself. I like to control as much as I can about a situation. So the mediated context allows me to do that. The interesting thing that you,
I'll give you the mic. You can
oh,
hold it.
is it?
I
Oh,
don't know.
okay.
You just seem like you might be a little
Okay.
soft.
The interesting thing that you're bringing up is that there's a lot of communication research about um, taking regular relationships that like face-to-face relationships and moving them online. There isn't a lot of research about online relationships moving offline. And I think it's because it's a rather new phenomenon. It's not something that has commonly, there's some research done about online dating and moving it offline. But for the most part, we haven't seen that as a trend until really recently. And you're asking us why haven't we done this? I think one thing is that a lot of the people that we meet online aren't actually within our proximity. A lot of the people that I have regular conversations with aren't actually in Ohio. And even if they are, there's someone, I can't think of who it is. Sean Cohen, I think. He lives in Ohio, but Ohio is apparently a very big state because he lives like 4 hours away.
5 hours from end to end.
But yeah, but he's still in Ohio. So it's like, I'm like, I could continue our online relationship, or I could take the time, I could take the effort. We have to figure out our schedules. We would have to figure out where we would meet and potentially drive, like, even if we split it, drive 2 hours to meet him and then 2 hours back home. It's just like, it's, I feel like you would need a very solid relationship and you need a specific reason to go see someone in person.
I think you're just making excuses for being lazy now.
It is a little bit lazy. It is, but I mean, when you think about schedules, it's, well, okay, for everyone that just works in the online world, maybe schedules isn't a huge issue, right? But for someone like me, finding this time is hard. It's really hard for me because of my teaching and my classes and then all of the homework that I have to do. But you're right, it is an excuse. It
Well, let's see.
is.
I booked you. This is probably we had this booked for what, 2 months, 3 months. So if you want to
Mhm.
meet Alex in real life, 3 months lead time minimum is what we're looking
3 months is perfect. It's perfect.
So start get at her now. Maybe we can make some post New Year's plans, and that will be good. But Griswoldi's on fire here. I got to bring this up because it's one of my favorite things too. Also, meeting in real life, there's a pants requirement. Griswold, I would say that you're right, but I feel I'm a method hangout host. I do everything the same. I'm not wearing pants right now. Alex, I told her she had to deal with it. I don't wear pants at home. I hope a sexual harassment suit doesn't come later. But
Yeah, walking into the library was
it
interesting.
was awkward. But outside of feeling old, being on a college campus for the first time in quite some time, that eased it a little bit. It just kind of broke the ice.
Yeah.
But let's get a little bit serious. We're approaching the halfway point here. Your turn to kind of take a break and turn on everybody else out there. Your fearless question that you want to ask the audience, something that you might have always wanted the answer to, but it was always a little afraid to ask it.
And I was totally thinking about this a couple days ago, and then I forgot I was thinking about it because that's how I function. Okay, well, a lot of you watched my rant. Some of you appreciated it. Some of you questioned it and got an answer that you were looking for, and some of you just disagreed completely. So, my rant was about how we're being too critical online and we need to just take a step back for a second and maybe, let things go. And you can be critical and you can be happy at the same time. So, my question for you is, do you think you can remain a happy person and still be critical of the things that are said and done around you? That is my, because maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe I'm delusional. It's happened before.
Probably the deepest audience question we've had on the show. So congratulations.
Ah, sweet. Do I get an award?
I don't have anything prepared. There are no door prizes or anything like that. I did not come prepared. No, that's. I think I'll just answer a little bit really quickly. I think there is just this desire, this need to want to always be proving ourselves in some form or fashion to our intellect or the size of it. But I agree with you. If you can't see both sides of the story, then you're never going to win in anything. There's always two sides of it, and if you can't accept the other side, then we're not going to ever get anywhere with anything, online or off, close or not close.
Right. Yeah, that was really, I mean, that was really, I'm not telling you not to be critical. I'm actually, once I did the rant for this show, I am like, I've got all these rants going on in my head. So I will have something for Ranter Day, and I'm super excited about it. But I'm not saying don't be critical. What I'm saying is that I think that we're getting to a point where we're tearing each other apart rather than making it a productive conversation. And that's what's concerning me. And I think that you can be critical of someone and still walk away feeling good about that conversation, feeling good about what happened. So, but again, maybe I'm delusional. Maybe
Well,
I'm
I don't know you that well, so I'll the jury's still out on that. We'll find out though. But in all seriousness, anybody that wants to chime in on that, we'll wait for some answers to trickle in. It is kind of deep. We'll see if we can kind of dissect some of them on the fly. But getting back to the questions, we've been tippy toeing around it. We've been dancing around it a little bit about our own lack of initiative in the proximity front. Are we doing enough to take advantage of our own proximity? I mean, being people that are involved in Google Plus and have a bunch of people. I mean, are there other people out there in the, we'll say, Northeast Ohio area that are we letting them down?
I the difficult thing about a platform like Google Plus is that unless you're really looking for people based on their location, you're kind of unlikely to find them. Like I was really surprised that you were like, "Oh yeah, I'm like 20 minutes away from you," because that's not what I online, that's not what I look for anymore. I'm not looking for where you live. I'm looking for what your ideologies are. I'm looking for how what you say aligns with what I think, or at least how you talk about what you're going to talk about, so that I'm like, oh, okay, you'd be a good reality check for me. Yeah, I'll circle you. I'm more concerned about what they're saying, and then I find out way down the line, like they put out a picture that's like Northeast Ohio. I'm like, oh, you're living near me. So I don't think we're looking at location that much anymore as we used to, right? Or like you would do on like a dating website, or if you're on LinkedIn and you're looking for a job, then you do it by location. Are we letting, you know, our comrades down? Probably a little bit. But then we look at things like there have been meetups, right? There's the New England meetup, something that Mark does with Eric,
Well,
I
yeah, but I think
think.
that's for their company though, isn't it?
I think so. I think you're
Because
right.
they all
But
work remotely and they just get together for like a little like summer camp thing.
right, right. Or like people do what they call hurls, hangouts in real life. And I've seen them in different areas. I don't think they're as prevalent as they should be. But then we're getting back to like I've seen these hurls, and
I've actually attended one.
oh, there we
Mhm.
go. See, so they do happen, they do exist. But like when I see them, I'm like, my initial reaction is like, oh, I should do that for Ohio. And then my second reaction is like, but what if nobody wants to come?
Well, that is a sobering fact that you bring up. I guess my point is, and this is to basically the whole goal is to use this as an example for everybody else, because everybody else is we'll just say watching the show is somebody in their own area geographically that they are probably the leader of or one of the more prominent figures that they could say, hey, let's do this. And I guess it's maybe not so much of a one-off event, but it's just like, listen, like, we're 20 minutes down the road from each other. What's lunch every 2 months going to do, like, to just kick ideas around? Because I mean, you can, even if you just have a hangout with somebody that is like-minded, I mean, you walk away from that think, oh man, I got so many great ideas. And then you actually sit face to face with somebody for that same time period. My guess is you have 15 more ideas. um, do you think am I being naive on this? Am I thinking in the clouds too much?
No, no, I think you're right. And I mean, all research has shown that having a relationship face to face is always going to develop faster and deeper than having a relationship that's solely online. Again, not to upset Ammon, it is possible to do that online, but it's very unlikely. Research says that relationships in a face-to-face context will develop faster, and they'll have a lot more disclosures, so you're more likely to get into a deeper relationship. So I think you're right in that taking these relationships that are online that seem very, I don't want to say superficial, but seem just not as connected as you might want them to be, uh, moving them offline will develop that connection. And I think that, for those of us that are a little bit nervous to make that step to offline, a really great transition is doing private hangout chats, because then, it would be a little bit weird to move from, commenting on someone's posts straight to meeting them. Though Vincent Messina and Mark Traphagen did that just yesterday.
Really?
And yeah,
Mark Traphagen lent Vince that close to him?
yeah, I know, right? I know. I heard there was no kissing involved, so it's okay. No punching either. But yeah, they had a really, really heated argument on a thread. Um, I think it was like when it was Tuesday or Wednesday, and they got into this really heated argument, and Vince didn't feel really good about it. So he talked to Mark and he was like, "Look, let's talk about this in person." So they got a beer last night, and I haven't seen the post about it, but I talked to Vin in private chat, and Mark put out a post that said, basically, he said that he's going to do a more in-depth post, but it was a really productive conversation for both of them. So, but if you're like me and you're like, I don't want to meet strangers that just comment on my posts, move it to a private hangout chat first, and then move into, unless it's something like, like if I was going to meet Gina Fidel, which I would love, who I would love to meet. I'd love to meet you, Gina. Uh,
She did actually in the comments say that she's going to book you for
Yay.
an appointment in April. I can't remember exactly what the circumstances were.
Great. See, I've done a couple of hangouts with her, and we just have this connection through comments that I feel like I would feel more than comfortable just meeting her in person. The minute I got the chance, I would do that. I'd love to meet Nick just because it would be really fun. I think he's like the brother I never had. It would be hilarious.
Well, you bring up Nick really quickly. He has a somewhat interesting spin on your question. He says, "Unless you truly believe that ignorance is bliss, aren't we supposed to challenge assumptions and explore new things?" Didn't see the rant, but it's an interesting question. You want to take that first?
Okay, unless you truly believe that ignorance is bliss, aren't we supposed to challenge us? Of course, Nick is going to do this to me. Of course, he's going to do this to me. I we should challenge assumptions. My issue that I am having with some of the crowd that I'm running into on Google Plus is we're moving from challenging assumptions to challenging arguments, which is still kind of, that can get kind of personal. And then we're making it really personal and attacking the person rather than their argument or the assumptions that they're making. I am completely, anyone that knows Vin knows that he does nothing but challenge assumptions. And I talk to him on a regular basis because he is really good at being like, Alex, you don't really know what you're talking about. Don't, maybe, maybe you should back up and rethink about it. I love that. I'm totally for that. It's that a lot of these conversations they're going from challenging assumptions, which is fine, to challenging the way that people are arguing, which gets a little bit, I'm like, be careful there. And then it gets personal and it's like, you're stupid. That's where people are going. They're going to the, well, you're stupid, I'm not talking to you anymore. But they don't say it like that. They say like, they hide it behind all this jargon and nice fancy words.
I think the really simple answer to this thing is it's finding the right things to challenge, and it's like it's like I had toast for breakfast. What are you doing having toast for breakfast? I don't care. It's just some things you just need to like. I think that's kind of what you're getting at. It's like there are things to really take issue. We're sitting on a show called Fearlessly Questioning, so I'm going to look for things to challenge just as much as anybody. But at the end of the day, you're going to waste your time, effort, and energy on the things that aren't really worth it. And I see a lot of that happening. And it just drives me nuts. I don't know if it
Right.
drives you nuts, but
Right.
probably does
No.
because that's why you talked about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's exactly where I'm going. What he said.
I'm just the host. So, I think that Nick kind of just threw a whole monkey wrench at me because we're having two conversations here. I think it's very interesting. They kind of go hand in hand from the sense that the different interactions that you have online kind of create these problems, and then can you somehow we're finding a way to take this offline. Um, Cheryl Deuce has an interesting comment, and I don't. This is it's kind of involved. We'll try and pull what we can out of it here. She says, "I think you have to ask what you want from the results of being critical, and whether or not it's worth the cost that will ultimately be paid." Um, I think that's kind of what we said a little bit. Yes, no,
Yeah.
maybe, kind of.
Yeah.
I think it's about finding that thing, and she said it probably a better way than both of us did. So
Yeah.
we'll have her host this next time.
I know. Can always depend on Cheryl to she's my buddy and we think that everyone has some good in them and we've both been attacked for that.
So we're getting close to wrapping this thing up here, and if anybody does want to come on and be critical of Alex right now, well, we do like to welcome that. Anybody in the audience that wants to hop in, ask Alex a question, more than welcome to do so. Just use the hashtag camera ready, so we know that you're fully clothed and properly ready to jump into things and have a conversation with us. Feel free to pop that into the event, and we'll be getting ready to wrap up here in a little bit. I'm having trouble reading my handwriting on this last question. I thought it was pretty good. Um, but I'm just gonna have to leave it, man. I can't figure this out. It's like a cat wrote it. Um, the whole reason that I don't want to, the whole reason that I want to do this proximity thing is because people often I hear a lot of questions of how do you meet people, how do you get people's attention, how do you stand out, how do you get these guests on your show, and I think you need to look for that extra effort, and whether that is meeting them in person or whether it's doing whatever you would consider that extra effort to be. Now, for example, I mean, you're probably going to pay more attention to stuff that you see from me moving forward. I'm going to pay more attention to stuff you see from
Mhm.
me moving forward. Find something strategically to go attend. So I guess now I'm being only the second person that you've met offline. What are your thoughts on people, making more of a concerted effort to maybe not necessarily meet one on one, but go somewhere where there is a group of people, like an event, like an inbound HubSpot's conference, like a social media marketing world, like a copy bloggers authority, something like that, to where there's a bunch of these people. Because I mean, that's really been what I've been doing.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely I mean it has its benefits twofold. One is that you do establish relationships, you make, friends, which is nice. But also if you're like I'm in Google Plus for business, it is amazing what happens when you're able to really put a face to what you're saying for somebody else. It's amazing what a difference it makes. I mean, they tell us that for anyone that is thinking of applying to a PhD program, they tell us to go to these conferences because you can sound as awesome as you want in your essays and you can have the best grades in the world. But if they can put a face to your application, you're much more likely to get in. If you showed that you've put in that effort of finding someone that you want to work with in your field and actually meeting them at a conference, talking to them, I don't want to say ass kissing, but a little bit.
This is a family show,
I
Alex. This is a
know,
family show.
butt kissing.
I'm
Uh,
kidding. It's completely fine.
but showing that you did make that extra effort really does make a difference for a lot of us because again, this is a relatively new phenomenon. We're not used to people reaching out to us and saying, "Hey, you know what? Why don't we just sit down and have a cup of coffee? I would love to talk to you for 5 or 10 minutes." Something like that. And of course, it turns into like a half hour. But even just making that small effort really can set you apart from other people. So I think that we're going to see it more often. I think it's going to become something that a lot of people do. But I think right now it is definitely a way to set yourself apart in the business world. And again, you're going to build relationships a lot faster that way.
It really bugs the crap out of me too because it's really easy. it's going to just give you a very, very distinct advantage, and it's just this crazy shortcut to the front of the line,
Mm-hmm.
to just go and find the opportunity to meet somebody. Um, I think Nicholas Cardat has requested to join us. We'll see if we can get him in here. So bear with us as we work through the getting that happening. But in the meantime, Alex, we'll have a little fun. Uh, what's freaking you out the most about being in the same space as a fellow Google Pluser? What's the most like shocking thing? Like, is this okay? Are you having any anxiety? I don't. I
Do you
mean,
have any anxiety? Good question. Um, what is freaking me out the most? Not I am actually really really comfortable right now. Well, I think the most anxiety happens while you're coming to the hangout. I think that's when the most anxiety happens because you're having all these thoughts like, what's this guy going to be like? What's going to happen? Are we going to be like awesome friends and I'm going to get coffee with him all the time? Or is this going to be really awkward and I'm going to want to
super awkward, right?
run?
It's been awkward.
It's so awkward.
Sorry.
Like I think that's when the most anxiety happens. And then when you're actually in the room and you're actually doing the activity, it's kind of like, oh, what was I freaking out about? This is, it's like anybody else. And I think it actually moving relationships from online to offline is way easier than meeting people in person, in my opinion. Like just like random people. There's Nick.
And we have this is Nick. I'm going to have to just line you up because you're the only one that can successfully pull this off to come on the show. I appreciate it. We don't have headphones on, so if there's a little feedback, I apologize in advance.
All right, same here. Also, before we even begin, I just want to let you know that you're lucky because today I happen to be wearing another Ninja Turtle shirt. You can tell it's not the same one. They don't have mustaches. Otherwise, I wouldn't have came on.
I would have accepted you all the same, mustaches or not. But I appreciate you being brave enough to hop on again. Nick, what's burning on your mind that you want to ask Alex?
Sure. I actually had a conversation with Vincent Messina in a private community the other day, and we were exploring the idea of perception. And a lot of times we have these, we'll call them arguments, debates, discussions that are really positive and good. And then, like you said, a lot of times they slippery slope into nonsense. But I think part of it comes to perception. How is the person you're, quote, attacking perceiving you? How is the audience around the conversation, people who aren't actually in the conversation, just seeing it, how are they perceiving it? And could a lot of this be changed by the way that we present our rebuttals or our counter arguments and frame them in a way that makes it a lot more civil and a lot more acceptable to conversation?
Yes. You said that so great. I thought you were gonna like totally attack me, Nick. I was like ready. I was like, bring it on. Yeah, no, you're totally right. A lot of it has to do with the person that I tend to argue with most on Google Plus. A lot of it has to do with perception, and we both realize it. We both know it about each other. We've talked about it. Like, look, dude, we're totally different, and we've laid it out. A lot of it does have to do with perception, and it can come to this concept of empathy, right? Being able to, even when and it's the hardest time to have empathy. It really is. When you are in this heated discussion with somebody and you are just getting really, really mad, and you're having to step outside of your shoes and put yourself in their shoes to be able to say, okay, what's really going on here? How are they perceiving me? Why are they perceiving me that way? It would definitely make for much more productive conversations. And you're right, a lot of it, once it gets to that point, a lot of it has to do with perception and the way that you're framing your message. Totally right.
Are you familiar with the fundamental attribution error?
I am.
Yeah, so this is one thing that I think a lot of when I see these discussions going on is, do you see the person who posted it? And I'll explain what it is here in like 2 seconds. I'll get into it.
Fundamental stuff on my battery laptop, so just to throw that out
there. Attribution error is when we see negative behavior in someone else, we assume it's internal, like they're a jerk or they're a bad person. Whereas when we do negative behavior, we pretty much view it as it's external in its consequences. We're doing it because our environment is forcing us to do this. So I think a lot of times when the person who posts their rebuttal or their counter argument, they do it because I'm standing for what's right. I'm going to counter this bad idea, and it's a broad context. They're standing up for something, and someone else sees it and says, "Oh, this person's just a troll. They're just a hater."
Yeah, yeah, no, I definitely, I mean, we're all victims of fundamental attribution error, so I don't exclude myself from that ever. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that is a part of it, is that we do naturally tend to assume that it's something to do with the person, it's something to do with their personality, when in reality there are so many other variables that go into conversations, period. And then once it gets into emotional conversations, it's there's so many things that could affect that we just need to be able to step out of it.
All right, Nick, well, I appreciate you hopping in here. I'm going to run out of battery on my computer. Before that happens, I'm going to have to wrap this thing up so we don't do it awkwardly. But I appreciate you hopping in. Again, thank you for being fearless, hopping in. And Alex, I do want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule for us to actually make this happen. It's been a very, very pleasure. Hopefully it wasn't too awkward. Where can people go ahead and find more about you if they want to do so?
Oh, Google Plus is always the best place to find me, and I'm actually doing 2 HOAs next week, so next week is going to be a busy one for me again.
But yeah, just find me in Google Plus. I'll be sharing stuff about those. One of them is about Glutification Nation. That'll be fun. And the other one is the typical paradigm shift.
All right, Alex. Well, I thank you again. We're going to go try and not be awkward leaving this thing and make sure we just not have any awkward goodbyes or anything like that. Thanks for coming on. I'm going to get out of here. We will see you guys later. Take it easy, everyone.